Hi, Ash. How are you?
Very well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be invited as a speaker.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure having you on today. I'm so excited.
I
Just to give
left I left the word out expert speaker um,
Ash
for
is an
myself.
expert speaker, no pressure. No, not at all. Like, I'm so grateful to have you on today. And I think just for the viewers and listeners out there, basically I met Ash through a mutual friend, but I actually met him face to face last week. So as always, I want this to be conversational between us, but I would love for you just to give us a bit of a background around who you are and your experience, particularly in OnlyFans.
Yeah, well, I'd say firstly, I probably think like it's pretty cool what you're doing with your podcast, in terms of like trying to encourage a lot more of these conversations about the topic regarding sexuality and things like that.
Thank
Because
you.
yeah, because it still remains like a little bit in the dark with people feeling comfortable speaking about it all. And I think that's kind of like reflected in the fact that you had a previous podcast where you had all these people that you're being interviewed and they were very keen for it. And then all of a sudden, once you tried to change it to having more of this as the theme, all of a sudden these people kind of like ran to the bushes. And it just shows that like still so many people are quite uncomfortable, with speaking about it all. And when it comes to improvement, as you said, many people are so passionate about trying to improve all these areas of their life, their health, their mindset, um, their attitude. But I still think like that sexual side of things is quite in the dark. Um, so hopefully we can provide a bit of light onto all of that. Um,
Definitely. And I didn't pay Ash to say that, so thank you very much.
but getting on to the question that you asked, a little bit about myself. Um, well, only last year I was working as a physio. So I'm a qualified physio. I'm now working for myself doing both physiotherapy and disability support work. And I do that during the week. And on one hand, that's kind of like my sort of occupation that keeps me quite grounded, I would say, which is important. But then I also have like these other sides to me, particularly at the moment at this age. I'm 25, where I'm quite like I don't know, more playful and just enjoy having fun. So I also do stripping and have an OnlyFans as well. So that's a little bit of a insight into my background.
I love that. And I love that you share both sides of your story. And I think a lot of people don't talk about what else they do. People just think, oh, he makes his income off stripping and OnlyFans. I'm gonna do that too. That sounds great. But I love that you actually balance like a reality kind of perspective to it as well,
Mm,
if I can say reality, but like a jobs that other people can relate to also, like your disability support and obviously your physio. So
yeah.
um so how did you get into something like OnlyFans and stripping? Like that's quite extreme. Your playful side obviously really needed some attention, but how did you start?
It is a little bit extreme, and probably to like set the scene to understand how I got into that. I probably need to explain a little bit of the background as well.
Sure.
So I would say that I had like a very just conservative and traditional upbringing. The classic case of like you go to school, you go to uni, and the next progressive step is to start working, and you just follow this very linear pattern. Um, I would say because I was doing a physio degree, it was important for me to like practice what I preach. And if I'm going to be a health professional, it's important that I'm embodying some of this advice that I'm giving. So throughout uni, I always try to have it as a value of mine to like look after my health. Um, and then I suppose from that and kind of like looking a certain way, that's what led to me beginning with firstly topless waitering, because that was just the something pretty easy where like I was already doing bartending at the time through uni, but just by taking my shirt off was able to earn a little bit more. And I think while you're a uni student, like any additional source of income is always appreciated. So probably that's where it initially started, the topless waitering. um, and then after doing that for about a year, I'd say, I got quite comfortable being in the environment of like, being in a room full of people, having to be the entertainment. So then I'd say the stripping was the next step that came along. And it's still a very big jump. to go from topless waitering to stripping, because you've got to learn like a routine. You've got to get a soundtrack together. For me, like I've got 2 left feet. Like I'm not a natural dancer whatsoever.
Oh my God.
So I was going to like, dancing classes for like 3 months, just investing a lot of time and energy behind the scenes, getting myself set up. And really it was probably like a 6-month journey in order to become a stripper. So from the time I said like I'm going to become a stripper, wasn't until 6 months, I'd say, that I actually did my first strip.
What was your first strip like? I really want to. I didn't. God, do you know what, Ash? I've never thought about like all the dance classes. Like for me, I've been to Magic Mike. If you must know Magic Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah, in London. And like obviously any woman that watches a strip show is kind of in awe and I don't think about any of the work. Like I'm a pole dancer, but I don't pole dance professionally. I mean, I suppose I could, but like, I don't another revenue stream, but I don't, I never thought about all the practice that you had to go to, obviously, before you became a stripper. That's just for me. I just thought you'd be a natural, you just get out there and off you go.
Yeah, no, it wasn't that at all. For some people, yeah, I'm sure they will be a natural. For me, it took like a lot of work, a lot of behind the scenes work, which people wouldn't recognize. But I also think it's quite cool to like be investing in something that is going to give you a greater return down the track. And that's kind of how I always saw it. And even though it took me 6 months, when I actually think about it, when you think about like other sports, for example, like if you want to be making money from playing a sport, you have to be playing that all of your life, and then you're just like, that's just, you're still not even guaranteed to be making money off it. That's just to give you the smallest opportunity. Let's just say something like golf or tennis. You have to be playing all your life, and then probably by the time you're reaching like the age of your 20s, that's when you might be starting to make a bit of money. So really 6 months in comparison is actually a very small period of time.
And what was it like on your first show? Like, can you remember how that went?
I would say, yeah, it was pretty atrocious, but it's more about just like taking those steps. That initial step is the hardest thing, and just trying to approach the situation with confidence. And probably the thing that I've already learned is that you don't need to have like the best moves. You don't need to be like have supreme talent. You just need to know how to like entertain the crowd, be confident, be having fun. And I think if I'm having fun, then it's more likely that they're having fun as well. So that's like the most important thing, I'd say.
Wow. I mean, I don't think anyone often really goes to a strip show to watch them dance. Do you know what I mean? Like,
no. And there's actually quite a few strippers that have a dancing background, and they're really trying to show off their skills. But unless you're watching it through like, a dancing background yourself, you really can't appreciate it. And sometimes other people just like you, just, grinding your body up on them.
It's like a hen do, or like, these older women that really want to see a naked man, semi-naked man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of a shame, I suppose, in a way, but I'm sure some people appreciated your dance moves.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh my gosh. So you got into stripping, and then how did you kind of transition to, what was the next step after that?
Well, then OnlyFans came afterwards. Yeah, I don't know how that came about, really. It was almost like I initially had probably the same view as most people. Like, I'll never do that. It's a little bit outrageous. But then I think after I got used to stripping, like I was already getting used to being quite exposed in the spotlight. I thought, well, there's no difference here. Instead of just being in a room full of people, like I've now got an online audience. So really taking that step didn't seem like too big of a deal for me.
Wow. And so like, you obviously thought it was outrageous, and then naturally you went and did it anyway, which is what I love about you. What I love about you. But did you find
that right there?
Pardon?
I said there's a lot to be said about that right there. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And then, but you say on like your bio that you were the top 5% within like the first week, which is insane. Like, how did that happen? Do you know?
I probably don't really know. I would probably just say like, yeah, I just put myself out there. And probably like the misconception some people have with OnlyFans is they think like it's just free money and it's easy money. And if you get into it, like you can be making all this money without really having to do much. The reality is that is not the case at all that I've learned. There's a lot of behind the scenes work that goes into it. Like because like quite a few people are now onto OnlyFans, like if you're only just half-hearted about it, you're probably not going to be able to be recognized because your audience will just go to someone else that's providing a little bit more. So you do have to put yourself out there a little bit. The other thing that's a little bit tricky with OnlyFans is through the platform itself, it's very hard to build your profile because it doesn't work in the same way as other social media platforms where it has like, a feed, it has like suggested people to follow or anything like that. So unless people actually like searching your name or have a link, they don't go to your profile. So you've got to utilize other social media platforms and try to grow those up, build a presence, and then steer as much traffic as possible back into your OnlyFans. So that's where the work comes into it. It's actually like all of a sudden you're spending time on TikTok, on Twitter, on Instagram, and that's what people don't realize at all. Yeah, and
Wow.
you become like living a life that is a bit like an influencer, which for me it seems like strange to say, but that's almost like where I'm spending a lot of time these days, like just on my phone, on my social media platforms.
Wow. So then did you have to build everything up before you went live as an OnlyFans person, or did like content wise, because that sounds like a lot of back end stuff that you had to do,
Mm,
or do you just kind of like you were ready to roll and you just put yourself out there?
yeah, a little bit of both. There needs to be like a little bit of background work, like trying to get a fair bit of content. I try to get a bank of content because there's a lot of hype when you first like create your profile. So if you're kind of already running dry on like what you can provide people, like it's going to fizzle out very quickly. So you want to have a big bank of content. But in terms of building up my other social media platforms, I'd say that's just like a journey that started with my OnlyFans. So in terms of like the TikTok and the Twitter, didn't have an existing account at all, and that just started at the same time, like simultaneously with my OnlyFans, and I'm just trying to build those up as well.
Oh my gosh. So then that
You can
there's
like taking on all of those things, how big of a workload it all of a sudden is. So when people say like, oh, I can be having a full-time job and doing this on the side, that's actually a lot. It's more of a commitment than you realize. So it does consume a lot of time.
Yeah. Well, and I love that you highlight that because like a lot of people are like, oh, I just want another revenue stream, particularly right now. I'll just do OnlyFans, which is what I've said to you myself as well.
Yeah.
And you've been like, let's be realistic here. What are the like highs and lows of OnlyFans like that you're open to share about? Because then like it sounds great, we all hear about things like foot fetishes, and I was like, great, I can just take photos of my feet, I'll get a great pedicure and I'll be ready to roll. But there must be some strange people out there. Or there must be some situations where I suppose you have to learn boundaries about yourself where you're like, I
Mm,
actually don't know if I want to share this because it's the internet, right? It could go live on anything.
mm.
Like, how do you decide what you're comfortable doing and what you're not comfortable doing?
Yeah, boundaries is definitely a big part because I think no matter what you give people, they'll always then try to push what they can get out of you and ask for more and
Yeah.
more. So you've got to be kind of prepared to draw the line somewhere, like where establish like what you're comfortable doing, what you think is a little bit too far, um, and yeah, I don't know. You can be like motivated by money, but I also think that's still only up to a certain extent, really. Um, yeah, in terms of like the highs, one of the things I'd say is pretty cool is that you can come home from like a day of work and I can go have like a couple beers at the pub, send a few messages, and then I've made, a few $100s by doing that. Come home from the pub with more money than what I started with.
Amazing.
So obviously that's one of the highs. You think that's pretty cool. Um, one of the lows I would say is people do expect you when they are spending money on you that you are often engaging with them.
Mm.
They like want you to be available to chat with them. So you're spending just a lot of time, maybe just like typing away. sometimes it can be like the later hours. It can even affect your sleep. And the other thing, often these people are under an anonymous account, so you don't even know who you're speaking to. Yeah, so they might be building a connection with you, but like the reality is you're not really building a connection with them, because like it's an anonymous account and things like that.
And can you ever suss out like who they are? You know, like do you ever have situations where you're like, I think I actually know this person, or
Some people will reveal that, but other people just like to hide behind a screen. Yeah, and that's what I find a little bit interesting, because for someone like me, I mean, I personally find like my enjoyment of like, getting out and about, socializing, having a few drinks, and I'll probably spend like $300 on a night out. Other people probably don't live that same life, and they're spending $300 just like, on a Friday night, setting themselves up in front of OnlyFans.
that's the thing, right? Like it would be a different way of life, and it would be so interesting to know what sorts of people are behind those people. And I heard a statistic recently where it's like it's mainly married people, or dads or sons. It's mainly people that don't necessarily have the confidence to go out and speak to other people. So do you think OnlyFans can be a place where it facilitates confidence in people, or it can actually like encourage those types of people to be more inwards and to not go out and socialize?
Yeah, I'd probably say it actually has as much as I like to say it helps people with
Yeah.
confidence, has the opposite effect. Um, yeah, I think a lot of people are lacking confidence, and this kind of fear of rejection, putting themselves out there into like situations where they could be rejected. So a lot more people are just like spending time, on their screens, where it kind of takes out that factor.
Yeah. And then for you, like, I don't even know, how do you see yourself growing in OnlyFans? Like, do you have goals? Like, how does this work?
Well, a lot of people ask me like, "Oh, what's your ultimate goal with OnlyFans?"
Yeah.
Thing like with the things that I'm doing, with the stripping, and OnlyFans, as though it must be money motivated. Like, oh, you're doing this for the money. In reality, I would say like my attitude towards it is I feel sorry for people that think they need money to enjoy life.
Yeah.
Because money has like no end, and if you feel as though you need money to be happy, like
Mm.
that chase in order to reach that point is never ending. You'll never ever reach a point. If you think, oh, like I need more money to be happy, you'll never reach a point and say, now reach that point where I can be quite happy. In fact, I think like, wealth is much like seawater, that the more you drink, the thirstier you become.
Mm.
So having like a good relationship with money, I think is important in terms of like, reaching a point where you can be quite content. Yeah. So what was the initial question you asked me? I got it.
I was like, this always happens. Where do you see yourself going with OnlyFans and stripping? Like, do you have kind of a
Yeah.
goal in mind? I hate the G word, but like, do you have an ideal situation?
Yeah. So that's where I was going with that little tangent. uh, Money goal. Um, Obviously, like you need to earn money in today's world. That's just being like quite practical,
Yeah.
pragmatic. But there's things that you do for money, and then there's things that you do for enjoyment and fulfillment. And I think they also play a very important role. Something that I was previously doing on my Instagram was a little concept called Wisdom Wednesdays. Um, yeah, which like once a week, because I enjoy reading a lot. So once a week, I would share something, often what I was reading about. And I just kind of thought, like, well, if I find these things very interesting, then perhaps other people out there might also find it interesting. Um, so I'll just like write up a little summary of the things that I was learning about and put it out there for people to see. And that's actually something that I found like really rewarding, because a lot of people would get back to me and say, like, oh, this is so cool, Ash. Like, I like how in touch you are with like all of these things. Um, I was doing that for probably about 18 months, like every Wednesday I was posting. Um, and then life got a bit busy, and I just had to say, oh, I need to put that on the back burner. But that's one of the things I'm wanting to resume again in the coming weeks. It's
What
like
is
one of my
Wisdom Wednesday?
goals.
What is Wisdom Wednesdays? What is it?
It's often talking about a lot of things. I would say because like my health background, and I was like in that environment, like I'm very passionate about like all things health,
Yeah.
physical health, mental health, diet, nutrition, sexual health. I think they all play an important role. You can't really look at any of them in isolation. Like they all feed into each other. And that's why I think like it's important with what you're doing, because some people are trying to make improvements in their life. Let's just say like their health, their attitude, and things like that. But if you're neglecting a certain part, like you're still not getting the full picture. And when you think about what you're being like having like a healthy sex life does for you, you know, if you're quite happy with that, you're probably going to be like more confident, more radiant, more energetic, more motivated, and you can apply that to so many other situations in your life. You know, your workplace, for example, which may lead to more recognition, promotion, just being more competent at what you do, because you know you're enjoying doing what you do. So I think all of them play an important part. So I enjoy reading a little bit about all of them, and then then I'll just like share a little bit
On your Instagram.
Yeah.
I don't. I wonder if you can combine it somehow into your OnlyFans.
Yeah, it'd be an interesting
Yeah. I'm just thinking maybe you could. I don't know.
well,
I'm just thinking
yeah,
you can
that's
combine
what I
something.
try to achieve through like my social media things. Is like I don't want to just be known as like a thirst trap, like known as just a stripper that has OnlyFans. I like to think of myself as like having just a bit more to offer.
You've got brains.
Yeah, and if I can
Yeah.
try to capture that, then that's ideal, because that's really who I am.
Oh God, yes. Sorry, I totally get it. I had a similar situation where I was on someone's show the other day and they were like, "Wow, like you're a really attractive person." And I was like, "Thank you, but can we can we talk about what we're here to talk about?" You know, like I totally get it. I'm the same as you, and I sometimes feel like I have to over justify that I'm not just someone that wants to talk about sex. Like a lot of people are like, "Oh, she's really up for it. She'll be really easy to get." And I'm like, just because I'm talking about what you want to talk about. I'm talking about what everyone wants to be talking about. They're just afraid to talk about it. Doesn't
Yeah,
mean I'm easier than anyone else. I'm probably actually the opposite.
yeah.
You know, like I totally get about the brains and the looks thing. I think,
I've got something funny to say about that when you said like people make these assumptions, but if anything, it's the opposite.
yeah.
Uh, Probably one of the things I have found since like starting OnlyFans, people think like, you know, oh, he's a stripper, he's got OnlyFans, he must be like such a slut. He must he must get like all the or things like that just easily. But because so many of them adopt that attitude, it's almost like they all disappear, and it's quite the opposite. I ended up being like the stripper with OnlyFans is practicing celibacy.
Oh my, you almost need to put that out. Put that.
I'm actually a Buddha.
I I love that you said, because I found the same. Like I'll have guys that are like terrified. They're like, "Oh my God, shit. She has this podcast. I know about it. Like I'm not going to go anywhere near it." I have something similar. I had a few times where I was like, "Fuck's sake. Like what is going on?"
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So yeah, a little interesting.
The life of a celibate only fan and podcast host.
Yeah, not what I expect.
But I love how you touched upon like it's important to have like a healthy sex life and a healthy work life, because I find like it makes such difference. Like if I haven't had sex for like a good couple of weeks with someone else, I'll be like, I can feel it, like I'm frustrated, like I will snap at someone, you know, like I will get annoyed about a situation. And I think like for some people, they don't even realize, like I've dated avoidant guys that are avoidant in conversations, like emotional conversations, and then really avoidant in sex. Like, have you ever experienced that from a male's perspective with women as well?
Um, wow. No, I wouldn't say so. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, so I
Maybe
don't know.
that's that. Do you find women are put off them from dating you because of what you do, or you find that they are more attracted to it?
A little bit of both, I'd say, regarding that. Probably people don't see me as like compatible for a long-term thing.
Yeah.
Um, but then equally when I go to like a stripping job, it almost becomes like a bit of a novelty for people to be like, oh, you know, I want to get with the stripper. So you get a like, you know, throwing themselves at you, making propositions and things like that. But in terms of like actually finding like something more genuine, then that really scares people off. So it's almost one of the, in some ways, like tricky things, I would say, because I think just about all of us like still crave like intimacy and connection and things like that. And just because I'm sort of living this life doesn't mean like they're still not things that I enjoy. So yeah, it's just, that's probably like one of the sacrifices, I'd say.
I feel like maybe you almost need to date a fellow OnlyFans or a fellow stripper or ex OnlyFans or ex stripper,
Yeah,
right? Because
someone
they
who's like
understand.
really, like open-minded, which is not easy to come by. Um, yeah, particularly from people like my age, I'd say. I think as you get a little bit older, you become like more open-minded. You seem to sort of realize that there isn't just like this one size fits all like for everyone. Um, and I think a lot of people kind of develop that attitude more so with maturity.
Yeah, I definitely get that. I've gone through a phase of dating a lot of older guys and then realizing just realizing other things, but there is a lot more open-mindedness and experience as well. Like maybe they've been in this kind of industry where they understand it too when they were younger, and then they're more understanding. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
Like I've been with people previously that knew that I was already doing this. So because like I was already doing it when I'd met them, they weren't really in a position to say like I can't be doing it.
Mm,
So they realized that they kind of have to accept it. But then they say they would accept it, but then when it actually came to it, like they found that it was much easier said than done. Yeah, like when I'd be at a job, I'll say like I'm finishing at 9 o'clock. If I haven't called them up at 9:05, like my phone is being hounded.
wow.
And like
Yeah.
it becomes like a lot to juggle, I would say.
Yeah, I don't know how I'd feel dating a stripper.
Mm,
I don't know. I think it takes a lot of balls and a lot of courage. I actually think I would like to do that because I think then I'd learn a lot more. Just the growth for me would probably want to do it. And then I don't know, 3 months later be like, shit.
yeah, yeah. But
Yeah.
probably what I don't understand is, as I was saying earlier, when I was you know, providing a bit of like insight into like the whole stripping life, it's not about like being overly sexual, promiscuous. It's more about like, you know, as the man, you're just like entertaining, you're there to have fun. Like girls like to have fun. And if
Yeah.
you're someone just like not take themselves too seriously and you can have a laugh, you can engage with them, and that's what it's all about. And anyone that actually comes to my strip would be like, fuck, you know, that's the complete opposite to what I imagined. Like he's just there having fun. Um, yeah. So there's probably not too much to be concerned about.
It's exactly, it's actually like lighthearted fun. And like, how did you come up with your stripping name, or did someone give it to you? Like, how does the stripping name work?
I don't know if I told you the story
You
already.
haven't.
No? Okay, well, this will be new to you as well. So my stripping name is Diesel, and I think that is absolutely atrocious. So I need, there was someone on my company who previously had the name Diesel. They left. I took their place, and just for the sake of expedience, they just recycled that name, and I ended up with Diesel.
Oh,
Um, so whenever I rock up to a job, or I often give them like a courtesy call in the morning to say like, "Oh, how you doing? Like it's Ash, like confirming that I've going to see you this afternoon at like 2:30," and they'll reply saying like, "Wait, what Ash? I thought we were getting Diesel." So now I get to live by Diesel, and it bothers me. Hey,
oh my! So if you could have any stripping name, what stripping name would you have?
I don't know. That's the thing. I probably haven't thought of an alternative.
Yeah.
A lot of stripping names, I'd say, like are very cliche and cringy, and that's not really my vibe. I'd like something that's kind of like, I don't know, a little bit like interesting, but not too cheesy. Um, Maybe something that I reckon would suit me would be like Calvin.
Calvin. I've
Yeah,
definitely met a Calvin that's a stripper before.
yeah. That's probably something that I reckon I could take on. But yeah, other ones,
Calvin.
Or be like, oh, what others? You know what I mean? Like, there's people that say like delicious and
Yeah.
and
There's
things like. And that's
I think there's a game you can play in there when it's like your first pet, your mum's maiden name, or the road you were born in can come up with your stripping name. There's something like that. And mine would be like Mitzi Meadvale, which is actually kind of a bit of a stripping name. But there's definitely some drinking game that you can play as well around stripping. So
well, maybe that's what I'll have to get.
maybe.
Yeah, get myself involved in.
Yeah. The name. Did you have it? What was your first pet called?
Jasper.
Jasper. That's kind of a stripping name.
Yeah, I could work with that.
Jasper. Yeah.
There we go. Sorted. That takes care of that.
Done. I'll send you my bill in the post. Oh my God. Diesel / Jasper or petrol, I suppose. You'd be like petrol.
But yeah. Yes. Not him.
Oh my gosh. So for you then, like, where do you see yourself, like, and where do you see yourself going with this? You know, you said obviously you want to do Wisdom Wednesdays, and like, say, where do you see yourself in like 10 years time?
10 years, I have literally no idea.
Yeah.
I like more of like a 5-year plan. But really the way things are like starting to unfold for me, I really can't even say with like confidence where I'll be in 5 years, like, or even 12 months. Like, because you got to think like this journey of mine of starting like, stripping and OnlyFans, that's only been the last 6 months. Things are like escalating quite rapidly. Probably, yeah, one of the things I find pretty fascinating is with stripping, I would say there's only about like 0.1% of the population that can do stripping. And if I break that down for you, that you understand how, firstly, like a few filters, confidence is the biggest one. That rules out probably at least 90% of people from the get-go. And then, so people that have made it through over that hurdle, then I think you need to look a certain way. You don't need to all look like Channing Tatum, but you need to be somewhat presentable. And then finally, you might have ticked those 2 boxes, but then you need to have the enabling circumstances. So you might have a job that doesn't allow you any free time. You might have a partner that doesn't feel comfortable with you doing it. And I actually think by the time you're left with those that are remaining, like there's not many. So for those like very few people that have like gotten themselves to this point, I kind of think you have the red carpet rolled out for you because there's such a demand for it. Especially with like, at the moment, like the Magic Mike, Premiere, yeah, there's a lot of work out there at the moment. There's still very few strippers. So that's where I'd say like all of a sudden, just from only just starting this journey, like there's a lot of demand out there for me to say like, oh, can you come up to the Gold Coast this weekend, or we'll fly you to Darwin, things like that. So I would say it's hard to predict where I'm going to be like in a few years' time. I just have to let things continue to unfold quite organically. And just approach every situation as though exactly as I've been doing. Try to say yes to opportunities that come my way, and see where things continue to go. That's kind of like my attitude towards it all. I like to say yes to an opportunity and then learn how to do it. Whereas a lot of people will be like, oh, I don't think I have like, I'm not capable of doing that.
Definitely.
Yeah, but
yeah,
you have a bit of like confidence in and belief in yourself, and just back yourself to do it.
I think that's such a good point. I think that's such a good point in life in general, like to just go for something and deal with it once it happens. Like I had that podcast thing, like lights on, camera on, mic, hi. Like you just kind of got to go for it.
Yeah.
And sorry, go on.
Well, I was just going to say, and you would probably find this as well. You become a part of like a community of other people that also share a similar mindset. So then kind of like grow exponentially because you're put into like this environment of like-minded people rather than having like a scarcity mindset, which is like very common.
Definitely. And so like for you, it sounds like you're very in flow right now. Like 6 months, here you are, you're getting flown everywhere and your OnlyFans is doing incredibly well. Like for you, did it take you a while to get the confidence? So like you said, there's only 10% of the world that kind of may have this level of confidence, or have you always been confident as a kid? Like
Yeah,
since
well,
you're a kid?
these days people always associate me with being a confident person.
I would do that, yeah.
Yeah, but I would say like naturally that wasn't me at all. Like 5 years ago, I was a completely different person, like living a very sheltered life. So many things like used to make me feel just petrified. Like, I don't know, school speeches and things like that. I was up there shaking. Um, Whereas now I think like the things that once used to make me feel quite apprehensive, if I were to do those again, like I would find them very easy. So it has just been like a continuous, I guess, journey of like constantly putting myself out of my comfort zone, and that's what leads to growth. So
Mhm.
that means like when you go a certain period of time, you can then look back and say these same situations that were making me feel uncomfortable, I would now feel very confident in those, and that's a pure reflection of just how much growth you've had. And if you're not putting yourself out there in those situations, you're not allowing yourself the opportunity to grow. So it's just the constant journey of putting yourself out there in those
Mhm.
situations. Like I feel so, for me, people say like, oh, because you're confident, you must never feel like uncomfortable in those situations.
Oh.
But it's not about being shielded from uncomfortable situations. It's about probably knowing that like, well, the fact that I am doing this is still taking a step, getting me a step closer to where I need to be.
Definitely. I like that's such good advice. Like I think because when you go to like a strip show, or when people look at like OnlyFans, they just assume they were born like this, that they were this confident. So I really appreciate you being that honest and sharing that with me.
Mm.
As well. And I always like to ask this one question for my guests. Like, what is your favorite pleasure? It doesn't need to be sexual, it can be, or it can be like, do you have like a favorite little pleasure in life that you love to do?
uh, uh,
It can be sexual. It's just whatever you feel like.
I mean, as soon as you throw pleasure out there, like, isn't that just? I suppose that's like straight where my mind goes. Um, my greatest pleasure, yeah. I don't know. I would say like at this age, like I do just like having sex. Yeah, and probably I think like your libido is a bit of a reflection of like your overall health. So if you have high
Mm.
sex drive, I actually think that's a good indication that everything else is going quite well. So um, yeah, like I don't like being limited in, I guess, my sexual opportunities either, and that's why I feel like at the moment I'm better suited to being single. So yeah, I'd probably say like previously I used to feel quite guilty for like if I had a partner and like still being interested in like other people and things like that. But these days I actually just learned to like embrace the person that I am,
Mhm.
being like a lot more open to other things.
I think that's so important. Like, I think then you'll attract the right person that can appreciate that in you as well,
Mm.
like whatever age that happens for you on whatever time. But I think one thing I read recently is that you're at your sexual peak when you're 60.
Yeah, I found that quite mind. Like I was listening to your previous podcast, which you warned us not to do. I did it,
But I warned you afterwards. It's okay.
and
I was like, please
yeah,
don't compare yourself to other people. But yeah.
yeah, but yeah, like the intimacy expert, Suzanne,
Yeah.
and like in your 20s, you're still an absolute novice. Like your 20s and 30s, you're still an absolute novice when it comes to your sexuality. You still have no idea. So that was maybe a little bit humbling for me.
Yeah. Same. At 32, I was like, great.
Yeah, probably also think like, well, it's exciting as well because if you do things correctly, like you just continue to build, your sexual life just continues to develop more and more as you get older.
Mhm. Definitely. And I think like the more open you are to different experiences or different people, then the better in that
Yeah.
situation. Yeah.
Mm.
Oh, amazing. Well, before we go, is there anything else, like anything if we want to find you, I'll obviously put all your details in the show notes that you've sent me through, but is there anything else that you want to share, how we can hear more about you or where we can find you?
I would probably just say my Instagram has like the links to where you can find me of different things. Like it has my stripping website. So if anyone would like to happen to reach out, for me to do a trip. Also has a link to my OnlyFans. So yeah, probably just my Instagram, which you can find in the show notes. That's where
Amazing.
you can find me.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining today. Diesel, aka new to be Jasper. And yeah, thank you for joining today. It was an absolute pleasure to have you on.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Um,